In today's brief video, I want to take a moment and talk to you guys about something extremely important that I had to do in order to quit smoking weed successfully. And that something has to do with acknowledging the benefits that I got from smoking weed, especially throughout my early addiction, or rather, early weed smoking days. Acknowledging the benefits was one of the biggest things that I had to do in order to eventually quit successfully. Now, if you wind up enjoying the content in today's video, be sure to check out the pinned comment or the video description for more resources on how to quit nicotine, THC, energy drinks, and adult media content, substances that I once struggled with, or you can learn more about our paid one-on-one addiction recovery coaching programs. In order to quit smoking weed successfully, I had to eventually acknowledge that there was clear benefit to smoking weed. And this was one of the biggest issues that I had when it came to quitting. And many traditional approaches out there, such as your 12-step programs or rehab facilities or things like that, we're always told drugs are bad. No, no, no. Drugs are bad. It's all downhill from here once you start doing drugs. And that simply isn't true. Not only could I acknowledge the clear recreational benefits that I had from smoking weed, especially throughout some of my early college years when I didn't have that many stresses in my life, but more so, I want to acknowledge the benefit of weed making my life more tolerable. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you know I talk about this actually being a bad thing, but this is a double-edged sword because there was points in my life throughout my college career, throughout my actual career, where I simply couldn't manage the work stress, the relationship stress, the family drama, physical health problems. I could not manage day to day life very well. My life always felt like it was imploding. I certainly had some anxiety. I certainly had some depression. And in order to manage day to day life, the stress that I was under, I consumed weed. And this is a habit that I picked up pretty early on in my college career. I think a lot of people develop very dangerous addictions in college, whether it's addictions to alcohol or amphetamines to keep up with the workload, binge drinking behaviors, or even just smoking too much weed. Certainly, nicotine being a big one as well, too. Uh, I adapted to my college work by smoking every night. That's how I decompressed at the end of the day. And I would be lying if I didn't say that weed made those stressors, those things in my life more manageable. And to an extent, I actually think weed might have aided in my success in getting through some of those challenging situations. Now, there became a problem though. As I continued to smoke more weed, as I got through those initially challenging situations, I continued to use weed to try and manage certain aspects of my life or to cope with certain aspects of my life. And eventually, what happened was the weed addiction eventually became unmanageable. Weed went from something that helped me manage to just becoming another thing that I now had to manage. And once addiction took over, it was unmanageable. It was irrational, as I like to say, right? Because addiction is not a rational thing. That's why when we're helping people quit, we tell them don't try and rationalize with those addictive thoughts in your brain. They're never going to make sense. Addiction is irrational, it's an unmanageable thing. So now, here I am in my professional career, right? I have my businesses started. I have more serious relationships that I'm looking to get into, right? My physical health, as I'm a little bit older, it's starting to deteriorate just because that's what happens as we get older. Naturally, our health starts to deteriorate. And suddenly now I'm trying to manage all those things and I have to attend to this weed addiction, right? Now I have to smoke every day. I have to smoke every night after work. It became something that I had to do. It became a chore. And it was a chore that was very, very hard to maintain, very expensive to maintain, and it was very, very hard to manage. Because now, on top of having to manage addiction, I had to start to manage the consequences of addiction, right? Now, I'm trying to manage the health complications. I'm trying to manage the financial complications. I'm trying to manage the various relationships that were strained because of my addiction to all these substances, nicotine, THC, energy drinks, and adult media content. Now, not only do I have the work stress, not only do I have my day-to-day life and day-to-day situations, but now I have to manage this whole other category of things in my life that resulted from addiction. So there was certainly benefits from smoking weed early on for me. There's no question about that. But those benefits eventually turned into detriments. And it was becoming increasingly harder to find the upside to continuing to smoke, especially once I started to develop beginning stages of CHS or cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. And psychosis is a pretty hard thing to deny as I was entering into that state of mind. Kind of hard to manage life when you're literally going through life in a psychotic state. Hard to deny that weed was a problem at that point for me. So I think this is important, though, when it comes to the quitting journey, because a lot of times, and you could even get this or misinterpret this from my channel, you're going to hear weed is not good, weed causes problems, addiction causes problems, addiction messes up people's lives. But I actually think there was a portion of my life where addiction or substance use might have benefited me for a short period of time, a very, very short period of time. And I think to not acknowledge that is actually a disservice. To not talk about that is actually a disservice. But I also think it's equally important that we eventually acknowledge, hey, once addiction takes a hold, this might be something that you use to manage life that's now making life unmanageable. And that's exactly where you have to start to consider quitting. Acknowledging that, saying, yeah, I had my run with it. It was good while it lasted. It did what it needed to do. I got what I got from it. And now it's time for me to move on, is one of the ways that you can start to make peace with smoking weed, especially if it's been a cultural thing for you or a family thing for you or a major recreational thing. Making peace with it versus just fighting it and saying, no, this is a horrible thing, I think is going to give you a much better outlook long term, because then you're not sitting there possibly in a state of denial for the next however many months or years or, for the rest of a lifetime if you're deciding to quit for good. If this is a topic that you want to explore deeper with me, be sure to check out the pinned comment and book a one-on-one coaching call, or just download the free 7-step guide or workbook or foundational pillars to recovery worksheets that I have in the pinned comment in the video description. I'd love to get your guys' feedback on today's video. Can you relate to this? Does this make sense? Am I on the right track with this or no? Because if I am, we'll go deeper in future videos. All right, guys.